All right, so moving on to the second part of this standard, second sort of example. And what we're doing today will take care of, let's see, we've done simple interest, so tax, markups, markdowns, gratuities, maybe commissions, I'm not sure. I don't know if we'll really touch on that. But definitely these things. So what we're doing, I don't know if we'll go into every situation, but you do them all the same. So if you have a tax problem, a discount problem, a markup problem, or a tip, gratuity means tip, once again, you'll do it the same way. Now the cool thing about this lesson is we've already done it. So what I'm going to start with is what we've already done, and then we'll go on to the new stuff. So let's read this problem here. The Sweater Shack is offering a 20% discount on sweaters. So the specific type of problem here we are is what's called a markdown. It's a discount. Now this is done the same way as any of those other things. Taxes, tips, they're all done the same way. So you have a 20% discount on sweaters. Now if the regular price of a sweater is $15, what is the sell price? So here's the store, we got 20% discount and the regular price is $15. Now what we talked about before is you have to sort of fill in a word here that's not here. But in your head, you should know what that word is. We're trying to find 20% of $15. So now the word of is not in the problem, but it's implied. We need to find this percent of this. Now, so the first way to do it, is just what we've done before. And I'm going to start that way because it's the most familiar. It's multiply. That is the first way to do these sorts of problems. It's just the multiplication method. So that's the way we're going to start this one. Is we're going to simply multiply. Now, since you're going to be doing this most of the time in a store, like you're going to see something on sale and you're going to pull out a calculator, you're just going to multiply it. Most of the time you're going to use this method. I'm going to show you another method that may make more sense to some of you, and we're supposed to teach it this way as well, so that's the reason I'm giving you both ways. And depending on the circumstance, you may use the second way. But let's get into this way that we've already done, just since it'll hopefully make more sense. So the multiplication way is you take this, and remember the of means to multiply. So we have $15, and of means multiply. The only thing that's difficult about this is you have to make this, you can't multiply the percent, you have to move it over, remember 1, 2, and make it a decimal. So we're going to multiply 15 times 0.20. I'm just going to do 15 times 2 because remember, you don't really need an O if it's there, it's the same thing. So 15 times decimal 2. 2 times 5 is 10, 1, 0. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 makes 3, and then we have, you notice, one number after the decimal, so I bring it over 1. So $3. So it's $3 off. So when it says what is the discount, this is the discount, $3 off. So we've answered the first question. Now notice though that's not the only thing it's asking us for. It first asks us for the discount, but there's one other thing we need to do. It also says what is the sell price. Well, you know if you have $3 off and it originally cost $15, hopefully you guys have gone shopping enough to know that we would take our $15 and we would subtract our $3 discount, and that would give us a $12 sweater. So the sweater would be $12. Now, just to expand on that method, you could do it another way. Don't let this confuse you though. So if this is at all confusing, you don't need to know this. But if I'm in a store and I'm doing this, I don't do it exactly like this. I do it a little bit different because it's easier to do mentally. What I would think is, all right, well, if it's 20% off, let's see, 20% off. The whole thing is 100% because that's what 100% means, the whole. So 20% off, if I take away 20%, that leaves 80%. So if I'm getting 20% off, that means I'm paying 80% of the cost. So what I would do if I were doing this problem is I would take my decimal, make that a decimal, 0.8, and just do 15 times 8/10. And watch what happens. 5 times 8 is 40. 8 plus 4 makes 12. I bring my decimal over 1. And notice I got $12, which is the same as the last cost. So if you do the percent that you pay, you don't have to do the subtraction step. I basically did subtraction before I multiplied instead. To me, that's a little easier. But if that was confusing to you, you just do it this way. It's the same answer, but you can see sort of the difference. All right, now let's talk about the second way of doing this. And the second way just goes right with the unit that we just finished. The second way of doing it is using proportions. Okay, so we can use a proportion to solve this as well. Let's look at that method. And for our first practice with this, I'm going to want you to do it this way some and this way some, and then once you're done practicing both ways, you can choose the way you want to do it. You don't have to do it any way that you can choose. We are going to practice some both ways just to make sure you understand them both a little bit, and then you get to pick. So here's the proportion way. You would just say, all right, well, it's the discount's 20%. So we get 20, and before what I did was I made this into a decimal, 0.2. Well, for the proportion way, proportions use fractions, right? Or ratios. So it's going to look like this. Well, the 20% as a ratio or as a fraction, just remember percent means out of 100. So it would be 20 out of 100. And that reduces, you could reduce it. I'm not going to. I don't want to make this more confusing for people who don't get that. But you could if you get that. So we have 20 out of 100. Once again, percent means out of 100. And if you look at the percent symbol, it kind of looks like 100. It's a 1 with 2 zeros, just in different order. 20 out of 100. So that means we get 20 out of 100 off. So if the sweater were exactly $100, we would get $20 off exactly, and it would end up costing $80. Now this one's not so easy because the sweater's $15, not $100. So what we want to say, well, we have this much off of the total. I'm just going to draw a line so you can see that separation. Well, the total is not 100. The total is 15. So instead of 100, I'm going to say, well, how much would that be out of 15? So how much off out of $15? So 20 out of 100 equals how much out of 15? Now watch what happens when we cross multiply. We get 100x equals 20 times 15 would be 300, I believe. And then you know the inverse operation here is to divide both sides by 100. And we get 300 divided by 100 is 3. So you notice we got that same thing, $3 off. Doing it that way, and you could finish the problem the same way. And in the same manner that we did this, you could also set up a proportion, and instead of 20, you would use the 80 that we found there. 80 over 100 equals how much out of 15? And it would be the same thing, just like that. So once again, you're learning one way or the other. We're going to practice both, but really focus on getting one of them. Let's do one other problem. We're going to do it the same way, so if you have it already, then you can probably just start practicing. This is for people who need one more example. So let's go over this very quickly. Let's see. You have a small business that spent $23,000 for taxable items last year. The tax rate was 9.5%. How much did they pay? So in the same way as last time, you know that what we need to do is find 9.5% of $23,000, because that's going to be their tax. Just like that. So the two methods, once again, was we know that of means multiply. So you could just do that, 23,000 times, and let's change this to a decimal. Remember, we move it over 1, 2, and add a placeholder 0. So 0.095. And that would be $2,185 in taxes. And that since it just asks how much in taxes, that would be how much they paid in taxes. And I just used a calculator just because we're almost out of time. I don't want this video to go over 10 minutes if possible. The other method is to use a proportion. For that, you just remember, all right, well, it's 9.5%, and percent means out of 100. Notice I didn't move the decimal because we're making it a fraction or ratio. So we just put 9.5 over 100. So that means if they made $100, their tax would have been $9.5, $9.50. But they didn't make $100; they made $23,000. So instead of 100, I want it to be, well, how much is that out of 23,000? And you would just cross multiply to solve this proportion. We've done a lot of that, so I'll probably try to stop around 10 minutes. But I'll get it started. You do 23,000, and then you end up dividing. So I'm not going to finish that, but those are both methods for doing that type of problem. Let me know if you have any questions.